Belgium has formally joined the case launched by South Africa at the International Court of Justice, alleging Israel is committing genocide in the Gaza Strip. The Hague-based highest court in the United Nations said Belgium had filed a declaration of intervention in the case. Other countries, including Brazil, Colombia, Ireland, Mexico, Spain and Turkey, have already joined the proceedings. South Africa brought the case in December of 2023, arguing that Israel's war in Gaza violates the 1948 UN Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide. Israel has rejected the allegations and has criticised the case. While a final ruling could take years, the ICJ issued provisional measures in January 2024, ordering Israel to take steps to prevent acts of genocide in Gaza and to allow unimpeded access for humanitarian aid. The ICJ also said Israel's presence in the occupied Palestinian territory is unlawful and its policies amount to annexation. Daniela, why do you think that Belgium has chosen now to join South Africa's case at the International Court of Justice?
Because there has been an influx of Muslim immigrants and the Muslim cartel is exercising their muscles. The ICJ has actually never even ruled that Israel has committed a genocide. That word is being used and it's losing its meaning under political pressure. Israel has responded on October 7th to what was indiscriminate killing, what was an attempted genocide by the terrorist group Hamas that entered Israel and killed a majority of civilians at concerts in their homes. And Israel has responded by trying to eradicate the Hamas terrorists, but unfortunately, strategically, these Hamas terrorists have embedded themselves amongst civilian areas, churches and hospitals, making it, and as well as tunnels, making it very difficult. It's also hard to argue that this is a genocide when Israel has spent millions and millions of dollars on aid. Much of that has been stolen by Hamas. These are not evidence of a genocide.
Daniela, I just want to reiterate that, of course, the United Nations and the ICJ hasn't said yet that Israel has or is committing a genocide in Gaza. Of course, that case is ongoing. However, it could take years. However, if Israel is found guilty in this ICJ case, do you think that it will follow the precautions set up in 1948, which was binding after this international treaty, after the Holocaust? This court was founded after the Holocaust. How do you think, if Israel is found guilty, it will take those precautions, it will take action? Will it bear responsibility?
Well, I think it's hard to take the UN or the ICJ seriously, considering its disproportional focus on countries like Israel without the same kind of attention and focus to other countries like Syria, Yemen, China, North Korea. It's unfortunate. I don't think it's a fair assessment. I think Israel is targeted and disproportionately scrutinized. I think that evidence shows time and time again Israel has wanted to seek peace with its neighbors. It's offered a peace plan 5 times. 5 times it was rejected. In the Hamas charter, it says unabashedly that there is only one solution. There is one state. There is no interest in living side by side with Jews. So with that, Israel, ICJ, the UN, they can say whatever they want. They don't live in Israel. They are not regularly attacked. Israel has every single right to protect its borders. The best thing the Palestinians can do is to want more moderate leadership so that there's actually 2 partners in peace and a way forward from this mess.
Israel is, of course, party to the UN Genocide Convention. It signed the convention in 1949 and ratified it in 1950. This makes Israel legally bound to the convention's obligations. I once again want to reiterate to our viewers that this ICJ has not ruled that Israel has committed a genocide in Gaza. This case is ongoing. I want to thank Daniela Bloom for joining us here on NewsX World. It's been a pleasure talking to you. Thank you for taking the time. We now move on, and US President Donald Trump's administration has imposed visa bans on a former European Union commissioner and anti-disinformation campaigners accused of censoring US social media platforms, marking the latest escalation against European regulations that US officials claim that it exceed the legitimate authority. Trump's administration has ordered that US diplomats build opposition to the European Union's landmark Digital Services Act, which is intended to combat hateful speech, misinformation and disinformation, to which Washington says stifles free speech and imposes costs on US tech companies. The visa bans come after when the administration's national security strategy has said that European leaders were censoring free speech and suppressing opposition to immigration policies, that it would risk civilizational failure for the continent. Joining us now is Matthew Verdum. He is an author and journalist. He joins us live from Washington. Matthew, thank you very much for joining us.
Sure.
The United States and the Trump administration in particular has been sanctioning people for speaking out against America and its policies. This includes the likes of ICC judges. This includes the likes of UN officials. Is this the latest chapter in that?
Sure. This is a pushback against European Union censorship. In America, we don't approve of government censorship. And we have a First Amendment to the U.S. Constitution that safeguards free speech, and we don't tolerate efforts to censor it. And the European Union is definitely guilty of trying to censor American speech. And finally, the United States, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, is fighting back and trying to hold some of the worst perpetrators of this kind of online censorship responsible. So I think if you love free speech, you have to be in favor of this.
Washington says the EU rules censor speech. However, Europe says they regulate platforms, not expression. Who do you think is actually right here?
Wow, that's a disingenuous argument. The EU is trying to stamp out hate speech, and a U.S. law doesn't recognize such a thing as hate speech. There may be speech that expresses hateful thoughts, but it's not a crime per se. And you are allowed to say things that are rude, nasty, racist, and sexist in the United States. And the European Union's the Digital Services Act doesn't provide these exceptions because Europe doesn't have a First Amendment. They don't believe in a strong right to free speech, so they think that they can just walk all over people who dissent from officially held government views. So I think that the United States has taken a strong stand here, and that if you are a civil libertarian, you're going to support it.
But these tech platforms are operating in the European Union. Does the EU not have the right to regulate them if they are operating in the bloc?
Well, legally, they have the power to regulate them if they're operating in the European Union, certainly. But the United States doesn't recognize that they have a right to censor them. And, the EU, if they want to ban social media, American social media companies, they can do that, but they can't regulate their speech America doesn't recognize such a thing as being valid. But if if the EU wants to kick out Facebook and X and Instagram and YouTube or any other social media organizations, it's free to do that. But they're going to. I don't think that their own citizenry, their own people, voters are going to allow them to do that, because social media is very popular in the European Union, just as it is in the United States. So, yeah, they can do something about it, but I don't think, when it comes down to it, that they actually will.
Matthew, the bottom line here, do you think this is about defending free expression, or is it about power, profit, and who sets the rules for the digital world?
I don't see a dichotomy between the two bundles of principles that you just mentioned. I don't see them as contradictory. The United States wants to set the rules of the road, but it wants to do so in a way that protects freedom of speech, and that's what American policy is aimed at. Such as, for example, the U.S. Decency and Communications Act, Section 230 of it, that provides a safe harbor to to social media platforms, to allow them to operate without fear of being held civilly liable in court for the speech of users. So, the European Union believes first and foremost in preserving public order. The United States, by contrast, has values that support freedom, that support liberty, and that's a big difference between the two things. The Europeans are much more, and pretty well always have been, much more deferential to authority. Americans have not. Witness the Boston Tea Party and the American Revolution, where the United States fought for and won independence against Great Britain for things that today would be considered, minor inconveniences. A tiny tax on stamps, and a tax on tea, and other things that today would hardly generate any enthusiasm. So there's a clash of values, of principles that the two countries, well, the EU isn't a country as such, but you know what I mean. The two power blocks hold, and the United States has served notice that it's not going to put up with it. Now, if the European Union wants to keep fining, I think they issued a fine against X recently, or maybe it was Facebook, for like about $100 million or something like that. They can keep on doing that. And those are, minor inconveniences to social media platforms, which have more money than God, as the saying goes. And if they really want to punish them, they can do that. But they're going to find that if they do too much, they're going to drive the social media platforms away. And European Union voters are not going to be happy with that. So basically, the EU stands for order. The United States stands for liberty, and these two things are not really compatible national values, and so that is why you're seeing this clash play out right now, in my opinion.
Matthew Verdum, thank you very much, as always, for taking the time and joining us. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. We now move on, and Libya's Army Chief of Staff, Mohammed